So hello, my name's Anne Sproul. I'm from the Stirling Photography Festival. I'm one of the volunteers on the creative team, and I've just got a few housekeeping messages before we start. If you could all keep muted, especially if you've got dogs going to bark or neighbours about to start grinding tiles that I had the other night, that would really help. Claire and Kate are very happy to take questions in the chat. So if you want to do your questions live in the chat function, they'll monitor them and they'll answer them as appropriate at the time. They might come back and answer them at the end, and in which case we can ask you all to unmute and we can have a bit of a chat. So you're all saying where you are. So we've got somebody in from Essex, and I think Stirling's maybe the furthest north so far, or Bridge of Allen, Stirling, no, not quite. So it's great to be able to welcome everyone tonight on the first Zoom of our 2022 Stirling Photography Festival. We are very lucky in that due to the pandemic, we've actually got our technologies pretty well sorted. So we are recording this, and it will be available on our YouTube channel later, if a wee while. So I've got great pleasure in welcoming Clare and Kate, or the Scottish Sisters Photography. The theme for this year's festival was taken from Scotland's Year of Stories. And you might think it's a bit of a cop-out because, as Rod Stewart said, and I know lots of people said it before him, every picture tells a story. So it does seem a bit like, oh, well, just copy, we'll just use that title, and we can, any speaker can fit into that, into their work, into wind it into stories. But I think the reason that Clare and Kate are going to fit so well with the theme is that they're not just wildlife photographers, not just excellent wildlife photographers. The presentation you're going to hear tonight is a wonderful story, and it's really charming and touching to hear their story. And I really think it's not a cop-out, as I said, and I think I'm going to hand over to Clare and Kate and let you enjoy their wonderful images and the story of how they got here and where they're going from now. So I'm going to hand over and ask them to share the screen, and I'm going to mute. So enjoy tonight.
Thanks, Anne.
Thanks. Cool. So yeah, I guess our little thing comes up saying Scottish Sisters. So just to let you know, I'm Kate. This is Clare. Just so you know who each of us is, if you don't know us already. And we're going to literally get started into this. Obviously, Anne's mentioned about questions, so we're going to actually monitor live. If you've got a question that you want to ask as we're going through it, chuck it in the comments and we'll bring it up. We'll answer, as we're going along, or we'll leave it till the end and we can have a little bit of a Q&A with everybody at the end too. We're not going to take a break, so if you want to top up your wine or tea or need a break, then please just dip away and come back to us when you can. And I think that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, so bear with me with the technical part. Can somebody give me a thumbs up that you can see that all right? Excellent.
Yeah.
Fabby. Right, so done the introductions, and I suppose our story is two sisters, one journey, the past, the present, and our future now. So the past is that in 2017, we started our photography adventures together and really wanted to go out and explore Scotland and take in its amazing wildlife and beautiful landscapes. We had lots of fun doing that, and it naturally moved into a position where we were sharing on social media, started then creating a website and really kind of building our brand as to what it is today. We currently feature in a local community booklet that hits around 50,000 households. Clare writes the lovely articles in that, and we share images of what's kind of going on at the time. We've had the odd feature in newspapers and a really brief television appearance on Scotland Today. which was really fun to do, but I'm not sure we'll be invited back after Clare talked about otters getting frisky in the sea. So we'll wait and see if we get a call back for that in future. The way the talk's going to go, I'm going to give kind of a little bit of my story first and present some landscape images, and then Clare's going to take over for the second half and present about our wildlife images. So I hope that you enjoy our talk today. Oh, hold on. There we go. Technical glitch. So a little bit of background on us. We both work full time, despite the fact that we would love to be out in nature all the time. We both have to work to pay for our adventures. Clare works joyously for the bank. And I just have taken up a new job working for a nature charity, which I'm really enjoying. We drive to spend as much time as possible out in the fresh air because of the work that we have to do. We enjoy being out in nature and pulling on its benefits. We're both married. Our husbands are like, I suppose, best friends, brother-in-laws, and spend as much time as they can playing golf. So it's a huge benefit for us because whilst they're out doing their boring walks around the golf course, we can then get out and about and do the things that we want to do. So we have a really good balance, which is nice. And they love spending time with each other, don't they? So
yeah.
They
turn any adventure into a golf outing. I think we were photographing otters in Mull, and they went further up the beach and declared that the Loch Stelvey Open. It was their first and only one. It wasn't a roaring success, but it keeps them out of our hair.
Yeah.
Whilst we were trying to photograph otters quietly on the beach, and they go away basically.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So photography for us has been in our lives for many years, as I'm about to talk you through. So this is our great grandfather, Edwin Arthur Baker. This picture was taken in about 1950 at our grandparents' wedding. That's our grandparents obviously in the middle. So Edwin was the deputy astronomer at the Royal Observatory in Edinburgh, and his job was to catalogue stars through the telescopes. So a very different type of photography to what we do, taking pictures and putting them on plates and things, which I wouldn't even begin to understand. But yeah, so that's as far back as we know in terms of how our photography journey started. So the family's interest started from Edwin, sorry. We don't unfortunately have any of his work, but hope that it's somewhere in the depths of the archives of the observatory. So next in the family journey followed on to our grandpa. This is Arthur Baker when he was in Egypt in 1970. You can see the camera around his neck. So he was a minister in Kelso and Lockerbie, and later days was a chaplain at an all-girls school in Ascot. And this is our grandma, Nancy. She worked alongside our grandpa and really kind of worked to serve her local congregation, and amongst the photography spent lots of time making cakes for the church and us, yeah, when we were growing up. Although we were never really fond of a Christmas cake and had to suffer it a bit, but yeah, that's a different story. So they were both keen photographers and really captured a lot of images of their family and friends. As you can see here, I think this one's in Egypt as well, of their travels. They travelled all over the world and took loads of photos. They also travelled around Scotland hosteling with the guides and the scouts. Like ourselves, they were self-taught, both members of their own local camera clubs, and built their experience and shared that passion together. Unfortunately, they both passed away a few years ago, and what we have left of their photography is thousands and thousands and thousands of images on negatives. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes, and Mum's got boxes and boxes in the garage. And I tried a little while ago to scan them, but it's a lengthy task, and between life in general, working, going out with this one and doing everything in between, it's been a bit challenging, but it's something that I hope to be able to do in future, because they really did take some beautiful photos. So their passion follows through into Dad. This is Grandpa and Dad on a boat to Brodick. And as you can see, my dad looks charming in his little shorts and a camera around his neck. There's a little bit of a theme here with these photos.
I can't get over how much Grandpa looks like an older Harry Potter in that picture.
It doesn't look like Harry Potter. Fashionable. They look like jogging bottoms. Anyway, yeah, so as you can see, both cameras around their necks. So this is our dad, early selfie. With his camera. So Dad, this is Martin Baker. He studied photography at Napier College and went on to work at, for anybody that knows the businesses, Elena May and Rob Campbell Harper Studios in Edinburgh. His job at these places was to take photos of victims actually for police investigations, along with doing graduation photos and family portraits. He used Hasselblads and large format Mamiya cameras. I always get that one wrong. And obviously in the picture you can see there his brand of choice was Canon. So Dad was a popular wedding photographer in Edinburgh, mostly during the 90s. And whilst he was running his business, he worked in the wholesale department at Lazar's in Shamrock Place. As kids, we used to visit Dad in the wholesale department at the weekends, and we used to like sneak behind the counter and sit and chat to his co-workers and friends and genuinely cause a bit of a riot about the place. Again, a lot of Dad's work is on negatives in Mum's garage. And we haven't had the opportunity to work through all of that in terms of being able to pull stuff out to present, but hopefully that's something again we can do in the future. But there literally is folder upon folder upon folder of Clare and I's kids, and we didn't really think you would want to see that in a presentation. So
I've got boxes of them in my house too. They're literally everywhere. Just if I had to put them in bags into like, I don't know, maybe because you were Dad's firstborn, the bags of Kate's images is this thick, and then the ones of my one is like this thick. But there's like hundreds of them in a year. You just don't know where to start when you've got that many images to look through.
we should do it. Listen, Mum's retired. Mum, you could do this.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, we'll get to that. So again, this is Dad. You can see sitting on the table. Dad took his camera absolutely everywhere. Actually, this photo was taken in Turkey. And Dad used to go down to the beach with Mum every day, although Mum used to go to the beach first, and the waiters would secure 3 sun loungers, for one for my mum, one for my dad, and one for the camera bag. It's because he took it everywhere with him, so it was a bit of a joke with the waiters year on year. But this is him with his 2 favourite things, a cat and a camera. He like us did like to take wildlife photos of cats, foxes in the garden, starlings coming up to his feeder on the window, but yeah, mostly neighbourhood cats. This is a rare professional photo of Dad that was, again, with the camera, and this was at Clare's wedding actually, and whilst he should have been doing father the bride duties, buying people drinks, he was going about the place with his camera. And did the same at my wedding, but actually in terms of photography, I prefer his photos to the actual wedding photographers. So yeah, we kind of locked out there. There's a reason that we're talking about our dad so much, is that unfortunately we lost him in 2015. So he hasn't been here to see us pick up on his passion. But we know that he would be very proud of what we've achieved so far. So, oh God, look at the fashion.
The difference in colour, like how tanned I am.
Right, there's no need to point that out. Right? Anyway, this is us in Spain. We didn't really pay much attention to photography growing up, despite the fact that we both got cameras in our hands, see the theme. We were more interested in Barbies and boy bands. But just to show that photography really does run in our DNA, and it's a huge, huge passion for both of us, and a hobby that we were clearly destined to have, and not stylists. But family is a really important part of the journey, and we are very, very lucky to share this hobby together. I think there's a bit of a lag on this. So yeah, we go away as often as we can for photography weekends, evenings, whatever we can do. It's all that we talk about, and that's because there's no decent boy bands anymore, and we're getting too old.
Yeah.
We've always been close, but since losing Dad, it's definitely brought us closer together. So for any photographers out there, our kit, just like our dad, is Canon. If we were to hold a Nikon, Dad would turn in his grave. So yeah, we've both got Canon cameras. We use a mix of Canon lenses, Sigma lenses. We process mainly in Lightroom, but dip into Photoshop as and when. But it's a bit too technical.
Yes.
So a little bit about me to steal the limelight. I love this picture, and I think it just shows how long I've had the camera in my hand for. That's Claire posing, and me with the camera stuck in her face. I mean, your eyes are all
like terrified.
I don't have any official qualifications. Again, like the rest of the family, apart from Dad, built up experience over time. I did follow in Dad's footsteps though, and started photographing weddings around 12 years ago. That's maybe 13, 14 now actually. And before Dad passed, when he was doing weddings, I kind of got involved in his work, and he showed me what the do's and don'ts are in terms of wedding photography. So I started my own wedding and events photography business actually in 2017. I had lots of fun, and it was a challenging but good point in my life. It pushed my photography skills. I definitely learned a lot. And what I kind of found was that my photography was really similar to my dad's, and I really loved, and actually still love, doing like kind of more reportage photography, so storytelling rather than lots of posed photographs, although this couple are posing, but yeah, like capturing the finer details along with all the kind of formal stuff that couples wanted. And I generally tended to speak to couples about exactly what they wanted rather than dictate to them what they needed. And it's worth mentioning, because he's on the call today, I had a lot of weddings with my uncle, who has his own wedding photography business as well, so it really does run in the family, and so shout out to Keith for that. We've had some good times at weddings together. So yeah, not too posed, capturing the finer details along with the big shots. This was a really fun wedding actually. This couple and their friends were amazing, so we had a really good time. And I think it was actually at one of the weddings that I did with Keith, like my nickname was a photography ninja. Like folk were amazed that I could be at one end of the room and then at the other end of the room taking photos, and how are you over there, and how did you do that, and like the amount of time. So it was knackering, but I had a lot of fun, and I was part of some amazing weddings, and a privilege to be part of couple's special day. It really meant a lot to me actually, to be involved in that, being married myself, knowing the importance of wedding photography, and that these people will have my images to cherish forever. So it was an events business as well. I dabbled in other things like corporate events. I did a bank thing for Clare's work, and celebrations, corporate functions. I did an exclusive event actually for Amanda LAKEY Bridal Couture, who was showcasing some dresses at the Balmoral Hotel, and it was when I very first started my business, and I was given the opportunity to be part of that, and it was really a really special day. It was really fun to be part of that.
I love these photos, baby. I love looking at the pictures of the events and the dresses are just so beautiful.
Yeah, it helps.
Just
It helps you to
Yeah.
model, and
Yeah, she's an attractive.
like that girl literally stared at me the whole time, stared down the camera. I was like, I'm over here, hen. I'm a ninja. Like this way. But that's Amanda there with the blonde hair, fixing the dress. She was really, really lovely. So that was really fun to be part of. But so the events ranged from things like this to local gala days where I followed this princess about and her friends and captured loads of photos. That was always fun, running up and down the street, taking pictures of whatever was going on as the gala day parade progressed. To golf competitions and golf functions, and to swimming. I've done a lot of photography for my mum's swimming club on their presentation evenings, and capturing some shots for their website for advertising and things. So a massive range of different things, which was all very good fun at the time. However, I made the decision during the pandemic to close the business and stop doing weddings and not do events and things. Working full time, especially during the pandemic, my job at the time was extremely busy, kind of key worker during that time. So trying to run everything at the same time was really challenging, and I recognised actually as a life lesson through all of that I needed to focus elsewhere and to really stick with Clare and focus on what we were doing instead of trying to do it all. And I really enjoy doing this stuff more than that. Brides can be difficult. I wasn't difficult. You weren't difficult, but brides can be difficult. So yeah, it wasn't the path I wanted to take. Health and happiness taking a stronger lead in my life. So this led on to my kind of investing more time in my true passion of landscape photography. And I mentioned kind of reportage earlier, and I feel like that's the kind of stuff that I really like doing, is capturing a story through images of landscape, and really like when Clare and I are out and about trying to capture everything rather than just the landscapes and the wildlife, what we're up to, showcase on Instagram, that kind of thing. I guess in terms of photography, that's where things are going, but I really like doing that. So I'm going to give a really quick insight into some landscape shots that I've captured. For me, they're not groundbreaking. I don't follow a set standard or rule. I just like taking pictures of what I see. So that's effectively what I'm going to show you and what I do. The most important thing for me, for us, is that when we're outside, we're actually outside, we're connecting with nature, and we're just capturing what we see with what we're doing. But sometimes it just clicks into place and we get lucky. So this is one of my favourite images actually, and this was taken when Clare and I were on one of our early trips actually. So it's looking, make sure I'm right, from Loch Leven up to Loch Linney. Clare and I were just sitting down to dinner after a hard day out in the wild, and the light reflected on the big window that we were sitting next to, and we just knew it was going to build into something special. So the dinner got bumped, ran back to the room, grabbed the camera, ran outside. I managed to capture some images. So it was a really like wonderful sunset, and just one of the like kind of special moments, and something that you never really kind of experience again. It was brilliant, and we were lucky enough actually that we had images in the Edinburgh Science Festival this year, and they picked this one to display on a big board that I really wanted to steal and put up on the wall, but I couldn't do that. So we need to get it printed one day. Yeah. So we love a sunset though, and it always seems to happen when we're sitting eating dinner, right?
Yeah.
And this was a really similar story. We had this lovely balcony where we were staying in Finecty, up in the Moray coast, and sitting down to dinner, Prosecco, and it just exploded in front of us. So we ran outside and left our dinner behind and stood and watched this glorious sunset. So it was another magic experience. So whilst you get that kind of moment of perfection in terms of what the environment and nature is going to do for you, it's great to be able to test kind of photography skills, and I do have filters that are put on my lens to do fluffy water shots and things, but it's not something I've done too much in. I guess I don't really like faffing about, and it's a bit faffy for me. So yeah, I haven't actually done it in a while, but this was a lovely opportunity to shoot ball fiddle again up at the Money Post, and stock photo shot of going out to the bridge to nowhere in the east coast of Scotland. And unfortunately, as you'll spot in the image, these kids wouldn't leave the bridge alone, so there is a little bloody child in the photo that I couldn't Photoshop out, but we need to go back and try that again.
Where is that?
East Scotland.
Okay.
Martin, I'll tell you, somebody will tell you in the chat. I don't, somebody say in the chat, because I don't know. It's like near, like,
The Dunbar?
nah, somewhere around that way.
Can somebody tell me where that is, because I don't know. Oh yeah, some
Belhaven
Belhaven.
Bridge, that's right, yeah.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a lovely bit to go to.
Is that the Bash Rock in the background?
It is.
Thanks.
Well done.
I thought I said thanks first.
I know.
It's the Bash Rock in the background.
Please. Right, so next image. I love doing a little bit of like trying to do a little bit of fine art stuff, doing minimalist photos, simplistic. This was shot up at the back of the house actually when we had that really bad snow a few years ago, and I had to absolutely like dig my way through to the snow. When I seen the line of trees, I knew I absolutely had to get out there. So it took me forever and I was freezing, but I think personally this is one of my favourite shots again that I've taken, and I think it paid off because I really love it. So yeah.
You actually turned this one into a jigsaw for your
Oh,
husband. Because we thought that would be quite a fun. Graham loves a jigsaw, and this one looks like it would be a really difficult one. So I don't know if he's done it yet.
It's
but
still in the cellophane wrapper.
Oh my god, turned into a jigsaw.
Yeah, I think we need to enforce that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love kind of trying to experiment in terms of, well, snow is really easy to do with that kind of minimalist look around it. I don't think I've ever posted these shots actually, but yeah, so trying to do something, I don't know, maybe it's like a mental clarity. I love the clean lines, and just, yeah, I'll take the opportunity to do that when I can. But as we've said, landscapes depend on the weather and being in the right place at the right time, and this was a magic day we had down at LAKEY actually, down that big windy road, and it was roasting. You can see it's hot from the sky, but it was lovely down there, and really great opportunity for some shots. Not getting a lot of time for photography. If the moment arrives, then I have to dash out the door and attempt something, and this was last year I think, when it was really foggy, and it was irresistible to go out and try and take some photos in it. And I'm just lucky that my dog and husband are really patient and told to stand still for a bit. So yeah, I like doing anything that I can.
Was there treats involved to get Hamish?
Of course, he would never sit like that. Yeah, so I have a bit of a fascination with mountains, so I will admit I've only climbed one more knoll, but I blame the pandemic. And I like to combine my photography into that, and it's something I'm definitely going to pursue more in the future in terms of trying to capture the gorgeous scenery that we have in Scotland. I love big scenery, we both do, like feeling tiny in amongst like all the surrounding landscape. So it's something that I really want to invest more time in. I had my first kind of taste of it, I can't even remember when this was, a few years ago, after climbing Goat Fell on Arran. So this is the top, I think that bit with the V is the witch's step there, and I loved every minute of it, apart from the fact that it was roasting hot. It really sparked that kind of drive to get out into the hills and taking the views, the scrambling, all that kind of stuff. It was brilliant. This has got a bit of a delay on it. Yeah, so I appreciate the requirements for safety on the hills and things, and during the pandemic, completed a navigation course to be able to do what I want to do safely. And after changing my career, that's taken up a lot of time as well. So hopefully maybe some winter skills, and then getting out next year and climbing more hills. Jackie, with me. Yeah. So that shot takes me nicely into, I never mentioned it at the start, but I expanded my kit and bought a drone last year. I've got a DJI Mini 2 for anybody that needs to know that, and I would really like the new 3 for Christmas.
Okay.
It's my 40th, it's my birthday this year.
She's not told that before.
So yeah, oh my god, I love flying my drone, and I love taking pictures of islands to see what they look like from above. This one was a wee bit too far away from where I'm at, but yeah, I just love flying my drone. I really do. It's super cool. It's really cool to do, and oh my god, Dad would have loved it. He would have like absolutely loved having a drone. It gives a different view of the world, and it's just, it's opened up photography in terms of what I like doing for landscape stuff. Mull is like an exceptional place to fly the drone through the clouds as well, and that's like really super cool to do, feeling like you're in Jurassic Park. And yeah, it gives a different perspective. I had to fly the drone out actually really far for this. What's that, Roche Island?
Yeah, it's if you've been to Loch Keel on Mull and you head towards like going out west out to the Cheshire coast, there's an island that's in the middle of the Eosphora. I'm never sure how to pronounce it, but yeah, that little island that Mull charters scoot around sometimes.
Yeah, there's eagles on there.
Yeah,
they didn't attack the drone, which was nice. But yeah, I think it just, yeah, again back to that kind of minimalist look, trying to do something different. Keep it simplistic, and if the opportunity arises, obviously on Mull it's easy to do because it's stunning. And as I say, I do seem to have a bit of a thing for islands. This is Zephyra out near Silver Sands or whatever it's called, east again. So yeah, I'll take any opportunity that I can to fly the drone up and see what I can shoot. And I love taking shots, like turning the camera around and doing it from above and seeing what the landscape looks like that way. This is up Moray Coast, I think, actually. Yeah, so getting that different view, and I did a YouTube video, actually might plug it into the content after this, on Mull, where I entitled it An Eagle's View of an Otter's World, because I kind of balance it both between this from what an eagle sees and then skimming the water in terms of what an otter sees. So yeah, we'll put a link in and you can check it out. And again, this is Mull, and just another way to explore. We wouldn't normally get that view. Clare and I went on a massive trek, a little bit further than I thought we were going, but yeah, it was beautiful. The coastline was phenomenal. You can see Calgary Bay just in the background there, and we had the perfect day for this actually in terms of the lighting and things. It was gorgeous, and again, being able to just get that different view, looking at all the islands in the background and stuff. Flying the drone can be tricky. It definitely tests my nerves in terms of, is it going to fall into the sea? Is it going to come back? Is the battery going to run out before I can actually get it back to me? When it starts screaming at me that the battery is dying, and you enough have a panic attack trying to get it to land. And we've had a couple of instances where try to land it on a paddleboard and cut my arm up on the blades, and I flew it into a tree when we were on holiday last month, and Graham had to throw trainers at it to get it out of the tree. So yeah, it was, yeah, I'm still practicing, I'm still learning, I'm still watching YouTube videos on it, but I'm trying. That's good. But for me, it's worth it to get this kind of shot of a landscape, like putting the drone right out into the sea, firing it back the way. This was an absolutely gorgeous day that we had on Mull a couple of months ago, and I just think it's wonderful to be able to be able to do this type of photography. So my last few slides I'm going to finish up on presenting a couple of images of a recent trip that I took to Iceland. I'm still editing them, so you need to watch the Instagram for more of these to come out. Iceland's amazing. I don't know if anybody's been to it. I'm desperate to go back already. It's a magical place, and yeah, it's challenging for photography. I took all the filters with me, all that kind of stuff. Was trying to do stuff at one of the big waterfalls, got soaked, the filters got soaked, and I gave up because I just couldn't even be bothered. We were trying to cram in that much in the 7 days that we were there. It was really difficult. It's definitely like anybody that is on Instagram, the reality. This is the only shot that I got where there was nobody in the picture. Like, there's all my other photos, there's tons of people milling about, and it's really difficult to try and get any different shots to what you're already seeing, because it's so busy, and the weather can be challenging. Although the last few days we were there, it was like 21 degrees and I was sweating in my wool socks, so I did not pack anything light to take, but it's a phenomenal place. This is Selfoss waterfall that's behind the big waterfall, Dettifoss, which I'll show you just now. And the waterfalls are crazy in Iceland. It's so good. It's so much fun being there. So this is Dettifoss, the largest waterfall, most powerful waterfall, sorry, in Europe. And if you're a geek like me, Keith, you'll like this. This is where Prometheus was filmed. The very start of the film, the alien drinks the black thing. See there on the other side of the water, he stands on that bit. Okay, so next time you're watching Prometheus, you'll know that bit was filmed in Iceland, and that I told you. Right? I won't tell you where the Justin Bieber video was filmed. I didn't include that. This was one of the waterfalls that I was desperate to see. This is Skogafoss, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's so gorgeous. Again, I think I've taken about 3 people out of this picture. Shouldn't be like this. But anyway, it's gorgeous. We got soaked, and it was just magic being there. It's such a stunning place, and I know that it's like a really popular one for people to take photos of. Again, it's quite difficult to get something different. And I guess it's worth noting that, and I probably should have done a little bit more research than I had done, but flying a drone is really difficult in Iceland. I didn't take any risks, but I took one tiny risk with flying it around a waterfall. But as soon as you walk up to these places, there's signs everywhere, don't fly your drone, and you can get fined and get into trouble. I think they don't want to put tourists at risk and things. And you have to have, a bit like here with some areas, special licenses, but it meant that it was really limiting in terms of what I wanted to do. And from reading since coming back, I think that what a lot of photographers tend to do over there is go either really, really super early in the morning because of the light at like 5 in the morning, or go really, really late at night because all the tourists are away. We only had like 4 hours of darkness when we were there, so the opportunity is better when all the tourists aren't there earlier, late in there. But I had my husband with me, so it felt like more of a recce this time. I know what I'm going to do when I go back, and I'm not trying to cram absolutely everything in. For background, we did the whole island in 7 days, so went all the big ring road, and it was knacking, but it was worth it. It was absolutely magic. This is a drone shot. I did manage to fly the drone here. Saw a car park, stopped, opened the car door, walked out, and it was near one of these sulphur bits, and it was absolutely humming. Stinking egg, it was minging, but I could put the drone up, so I was happy. So kind of just got on with it. And yeah, I really like this image of the landscape. You can see behind how high these mountains are. It really did feel at times like the place was like Scotland on steroids. It was phenomenal. So last couple of images from me. Again, I tried to do like some simplistic stuff that I kind of showed. I really wish that I could say that I climbed somewhere to take this, but it wasn't. It was the long lens. And yeah, just a stunning part of the country. This was in, and I'm going to use the English pronunciation, the Vatna Glacier, which is at the south of the island. We got our first glimpse of this glacier actually from the plane as we're approaching the island. It's the second largest ice cap in Europe, covering 8% of the country. It's huge when you look at it on the map. It's the actual national park where the glacier is 7 times the size of the Cairngorms National Park, to put it in perspective. And the highest peak, not this one, further into the glacier, is over twice the height of Ben Lomond, at 6,921 feet. So it's we skirted the edges. You can do loads of kind of trips out into the glacier and stuff, but maybe that's for the next trip. But the area is phenomenal. It's totally stunning. And again, long lenses are handy with this kind of thing to isolate in. So where does Claire fit in? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
I mentioned Dad passing away, which led to Claire and I spending a lot of time, a lot more time together, to cope with what we were going through. And we really together turned to nature to heal, I suppose. We both have a massive passion for wildlife, and really have taken the opportunity out of what happened to spend more time together and explore the wilds of Scotland. One of our first trips was to Glencoe, everybody knows the Buckle, and Glenetive in late 2016. We were in awe of the huge mountains that are in that area, and really kind of sucked in their size and beauty. So we, is this going to work?
Maybe. Try it again.
I'll try that one.
Technical difficulties.
Hopefully that'll work next time. Yeah, so we took the amazing 16-mile road down through Glenetive, zooming about, which was loads of fun. And it was during that first trip that we had, I suppose, our very first wild encounter with nature. We turned one of the lovely sharp corners, not going too fast, and this huge stag was standing in the ferns, looking majestic, straight out of Monica the Glen. Like, we had like a massive moment here. Heart was pounding, slowly reversed the car, stayed with your stag, and managed to grab some shots before it ran off. We didn't have the same kit as we do now, didn't have big lenses or anything, so this is what we captured. But for us, it was like the best moment and the best photo that we'd ever taken. And it was really a kind of magic moment, wasn't it? And it's really the start of it. Like, I think both of us, whenever we're down there, look at this wee bit in the ferns, hoping that the stag will be there and take us back to that moment. So thank you very much for listening to me talk about my kind of journey through photography and having a look at my landscape shots and stuff. And I'm now going to pass it over to Claire, who is going to talk you through our wildlife work.
Yes. I do not do landscape. You're just going to have to leave it open because I need one.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't do landscape. I don't do drones. I leave that to Kate. That's, you know, that's where she likes to do. I am purely wildlife. Let me press the right button.
Down button. Oh, it's doing that. Okay, let's see if it works.
So this is me. It's handy having your sister alongside you who can take pictures whilst you're sprawled across the grass looking for mountain hares. The first place I started taking wildlife pictures was actually at Centre Parks in Winfield Forest. There was red squirrels there, and all I had was my iPhone, and you can't really get decent pictures at a distance on your iPhone. So I thought now is probably the time to invest in a camera, and the first one that I bought when I came back was actually, it was our Canon bridge camera. Had a really good zoom on it, but that's the first one that I bought. And so when I went back later that year, the red squirrels didn't know what they were going to be in for with me around with the camera. But at this point though, kind of the words composition, rule of thirds, you know, that hadn't really entered my vocabulary in any sort of way. I really just aimed at the subject and pressed the shutter button and hoped for the best. You know, I was really happy even if there was a twig in the way, but it's a good place to start. It's, you know, it's how you learn, it's how you find your own style, and you know, everybody kind of really has to start somewhere. But it was around that time I really thought I want to photograph wildlife. And then I started joining some Facebook photography groups, and I really was just in such admiration of the shots that people were getting of, you know, especially of Scottish wildlife. I felt like it really struck a nerve with me, something I want to go and photograph this. And seeing these photos really kind of opened my eyes and Kate's eyes as to what wonderful wildlife we have across Scotland. And it really started to kind of kickstart a desire to get out and explore Scotland. I don't really like flying very much, so that it helps now that I found a hobby that keeps me at home. So I haven't been on a holiday abroad since 2015, albeit I'm going to Sweden in February, and for the people on the call that are coming with me, good luck. So I do kind of, I look at our wildlife, and whilst it is wonderful to see, we are a massively nature depleted country. You know, we're ranked one of the worst countries in the world for biodiversity, and it's quite frankly changed my whole thought process and approach to what I do with my time compared to what I would do before. Go to Mexico for 2 weeks, like rotate myself like a chicken in the supermarket to get a more even tan, which cocktail can I start drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning, you know, that kind of thing, to, oh, that looks like a really nice pair of walking boots, I need some new socks to go with my new walking boots, like, yeah. Or sitting in the rain photographing otters, you know, compared to what I would have done just a few years ago. And as my interest in wildlife photography grew, kind of my awareness of conservation issues our wildlife faces kind of came to light, from squirrel pox, which along with habitat destruction and car accidents has really decimated our red squirrel population. You know, they were once widespread across the whole country, and now the majority of the population in the UK is in Scotland, to mountain hare culls, which are thankfully no longer able to be done in the numbers that they were being done previously. And probably the area I feel most passionate about is raptor persecution. So birds of prey being targeted because they have a hooked beak and a talon in some areas of the country aren't necessarily welcome. So it's a really big passion for me. And a lot of people ask me what my favourite type of animal is, and at one point, and I asked that to somebody and they gave me a really dry response back, and I was a bit like, well, okay, you don't have a favourite animal, that's a bit weird. But I do actually kind of get that now, and I think from a photography, from a wildlife encounter perspective, everything really has its own special reason why you enjoy it, its own different reward. You know, whether it's sitting in a hide waiting for a pine marten to come along for 2 minutes, 3 minutes at most, actually, is one of my encounters, or, you know, falling over rocks that somebody might have done with the camera on hand looking for otters. Only for it to come on shore behind a rock. You think you've got yourself in the perfect position, and the otter comes on shore with like a big crab, and it goes behind a lobster. It doesn't go behind a lobster, it goes behind a rock, sorry. And all you can see its head moving up and down as it devours this crab, and you cannot see it for love nor money. Each encounter for us is really incredibly special. So even if I may or may not have a slight tantrum at a missed opportunity, I try and reassure myself, well, you saw it, you saw an otter, you saw a squirrel, you saw a fox, whatever it might be. It's nice to get a shot, but if I wasn't into photography, I would still be watching. You know, Dad, as Kate mentioned earlier, Dad had feeders on the window in the kitchen, and the starlings would line up along the telephone wire, driving downstairs neighbour absolutely bananas. But that kind of passion that Dad had for watching wildlife is really carried over, and I think I take their pictures because they can't tell their own story, and people need to tell their story and raise awareness of what they are. So that was me, as I said, photographing mountain hares a few years ago. Sorry, we're having some difficulty with...
I'll do the
thing now. Yeah, we're having some difficulties with the image changing. So the one second. So the goldfinch is probably one of my favourite birds. I love their little tinkling, like bell calls. This was taken in spring when the gorse bushes were in full swing. And if you this is the, okay, yeah, this is the male bird. I think they've got really gorgeous colourings, the goldfinches, and you can tell it's a male because the red goes beyond the eye, as you can see, a little band around its face. And actually, I'm so excited. I'm getting goldfinches visiting my garden now, and every time my husband and I just shout each other, "There's a goldfinch in the garden." I've even had the babies in this year, which has been really exciting, watching them kind of develop and flutter their wings frantically as they're waiting for their parent to get fed. And then a white throat. This is one of the birds that comes over in winter, in summer, sorry. I haven't seen any this year, but one of the best times to see them is kind of early in the morning. They're really fast moving. This one was gathering some nest material and ducking back into the gorse bushes. They're very similar to your sedge warblers, which are, again, a little brown job is maybe one of the appropriate names for all these little birds that come over in winter, in summer. So they'll kind of look the same, you know, chiff chaff, willow warbler. But a sedge warbler, their call is really quite unique, I think. It's got a really raspy call and it makes an absolute racket. So if you are walking about anywhere next year, you know, if you hear this really unusual call, it could be a sedge warbler hiding in the bushes. I think it's probably safe to assume that everybody loves a long-tailed tit. They're just cute. There's no other word to describe them. Watching them, I kind of went out a couple of years ago and I was watching them flitting through the canopies in a little group, and they, for being such little birds, they make an absolute racket when they're approaching. You know, you can just tell there's this cacophony of noise coming from these little birds through maybe willow trees, and this one looked like it was on the hunt for some breakfast in the morning. And then I soon became aware of, drum roll, wait, well, that was the anticlimax, hold on. These little fluff balls sitting in the hawthorn bushes above me. I mean, there's two there, one in, you know, in from each corner that clearly didn't want their picture taken. And that third one in from the left had leftover daddy long legs, Jenny long legs, whatever you want to call them, in its mouth. But, oh, I just love them. They're so cute. So yeah, long-tailed tits. Crested tits, the punk rockers of the Highlands, restricted to the Caledonian pine forest. They would have been once, you know, found more widely across the UK, but again, habitat destruction. We've just removed the types of trees that they like to nest in, that they can use. I'm sure many of you have been up to Lochgarten, to the visitor centre, and sat in the car park or sat around at the visitor centre and waited on the little cresties coming down. Again, with like the sedge warblers, once you've heard the call of a crested tit, there's no kind of mistaking it. It's kind of a real trilling noise that they make. They've got a lot of attitude. This one was actually taken at, I think you got this at Neil McIntyre's hide in Aviemore at Rothy Marcus. So yeah, there's a few eyes massively bigger than its belly with this one, with this team up, taken away. I don't know how it was going to demolish that. The best time to see them is winter. If you are looking for crested tits, in the summer they tend to stay up high in the canopy, so they're harder to see. You might hear them, but if you are looking to see them, definitely head up to Lochgarten. I actually went out with Andy Howard last year to his crested tit site just outside Inverness. I don't have any pictures in desktop, but used that to get some silhouette images, because with that little crest on top of their head, they really make for fabulous silhouette backlit images, backlit birds. I have a real thing for photographing stuff in the rain. I mean, primarily if I can stay dry at the same time, that would be the dream. These were taken from, I think it's still there, but the little songbird hide up at Argotty, red kites, which I'm sure a few of you are familiar with. So photographing in the rain, I really try and slow down the shutter speeds a little bit. You know, even at 1,000th of a second, you can capture the rain. But if the bird or any subject is kind of sitting still, you can really drop that shutter speed down to make the rainfall more apparent. Argotty have got a really healthy population of tree sparrows, which are the lesser found cousin of the house sparrow or the spuggy, depending on where you are in the country. And you can tell the difference between the house sparrow and the tree sparrow, because that little patch on the male's cheek, they look like little earmuffs. That's how you can tell the difference. And actually, Argotay on the path up to the hide planted loads of hawthorn and beech trees and put up loads of nesting boxes, which has really encouraged the population to grow. And they are great little subjects, and just waiting on them at the feeding station that's there to hover, because there was loads of them, and so they, if one of them wanted off the feeder or wanted on the feeder, they would just hover and kick one of the other ones off. The short-eared owls, I have to say, I try not to species chase too much, but I think even Kate will testify, if there's a short-eared owl about, I will try and find it. This was actually taken just outside Edinburgh at Gilmerton 3 or 4 years ago now, just outside a new build housing estate. It was a really random place for them to turn up, but for me, shorties are just one of the most beautiful birds out there. Their colourings, the way they hunt, they're just incredible birds. Even on a muddy mound, they still look amazing, and they blend in so well. Actually, you know, you do have breeding populations in Scotland, or they spend winter here. You know, there was some down at Musselburgh a few years ago. There was about 15 or 16 of them down near the lagoons. So if you are, you know, shorties, they do attract the crowd. A lot of Twitter accounts or Facebook pages will post if they're kind of, you know, in the area. But actually, I was in Orkney earlier this year. I think Kate was probably getting sick of me texting the back of the camera images, because if you've never been to Orkney and you want to photograph short-eared owls, Orkney is up there. It's just an incredible place for them. And then these long-eared owls, so you can see on the top, they don't actually have ears, it's just feathers. And this was taken kind of, I think the day after lockdown was lifted in July, and I was straight through. I found out that there was a population in a really busy place in Edinburgh. And yeah, I was like, it was my first long-eared owl shots. And this one here, you can see a bullfinch actually in front of the owl. It was just hopping about and making an absolute racket. And you can see how intrigued that the long-eared owl is, but you can also see how well they blend in with their background. They're quite small birds. They look quite big when they're flying, but when you see them sitting, they are pretty tiny, but they blend in really well with their surrounding. But yeah, this bullfinch was very amusing watching it interact with this long-eared owl. If you're out in the, you know, you're looking for them in the breeding season, if you hear something that sounds like a squeaky gate and there's no gate around, chances are it might be a long-eared owl chick. That is their kind of stereotypical call. And during lockdown, when Chris Packham and Megan McCubbin were running their self-isolating bird club, they actually featured this image, which was really nice of them to do. Moving on to barn owls, really hard to see. I'm sure they're around up here, but because it's colder, they tend not to come out as early in the day as you see maybe down in England. And so I took an opportunity when Argotay were given 2 barn owls that had been rescued and rehabilitated at Hesselhead, a rescue through in Ayr, I think it is. And yeah, I got a bit of a sneak peek before they were released. So they were taken and put into a barn, but it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and if anybody knows barn owls, are not massively interested in flying at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they were just perched up in this barn. I'm like sneaking around, hoping there's no creaking floorboards to disturb them. So I've not seen any in a couple of years. We did kind of go out looking for them when I was given a location earlier this year, but apparently they wanted to fly at 11:30 at night, not like 7 o'clock when I wanted to go and look for them. So, then we've got the waxwings. They are starling-sized birds, and actually they've come back to the same location 2 or 3 years in a row at Ballgreen. So I'm sure some of you have even been to photograph them there. They come over in winter. Kind of starling-sized birds. They're really cool. They're called waxwings because of the little yellow tips on the bottom of their tail and the bottom of their wings. They look like they've been dipped in wax. Unfortunately, I've not seen any in a couple of years. I don't know if it's, I think during lockdown, maybe people weren't sharing their locations to avoid, you know, we couldn't travel anywhere, but I didn't really read any reports of them last year. And apparently there is a a cycle to how many come across, and maybe this year we might be in for a surprise and get lots of waxwings coming over. But they love berry bearing trees, so rowan trees, hawthorn bushes, but they've got a really unfortunate habit of kind of gathering in trees right beside the busy roads or car parks at supermarkets. Like supermarkets like to line their area with rowan trees normally, and so you have to then kind of battle with wanting to take images of them, but people asking you, what are you looking at? What are you watching? You have to then point out what it is, and like, oh, is that? I see him every day. Like, oh man, I'm standing here for hours. So I do follow the Twitter account, so if anybody is trying to find them, then the Waxwing Twitter account, I'm sure will start to be in full flow from kind of October onwards, if you're looking to see them. Moving on to gannets, we went to Trip Head when we were up in the Murray Coast, when we were talking about Finecti and Beaufort Rock. Took our first trip there because I always looked at the map. It's like 3.5 hours drive from here, which is a really long way to go. So we took advantage and went up to Trip Head, and not just for the wildlife and the gannets, but the landscapes were just incredible, weren't they?
Stunning.
Yeah. So the only thing is, if you go on a sunny day, bright white gannets and bright sunshine do not the perfect combination make. And I think we also had a north wind coming in, so you know, ideally I would have wanted a south wind so the birds kind of hover before they come into land. So you know, you need to try and reduce the exposure to compensate for the sunlight. You know, these are such majestic birds. They're incredible. The noise they make, the way they interact with each other, how closely tightly packed they nest is incredible. And it's really sad to see the impact that avian flu has been having on the gannet colonies. When I was up in Orkney, there was just dead gannets littered in the beaches, and by all accounts, it's just getting worse. You know, they closed so many of the places. I was just at Murray last weekend and was going to go to Trip Head, but you know, not the sensible time to go.
Although there was some good news today
What was
that Bass Rock are reporting that it seems to have gone through, and
Oh,
that
really?
there's now chicks growing, and
wow.
like they're kind of saying that it seems to have gone from Bass Rock, so
Oh,
they're
that's
just
good.
monitoring it now. So.
Oh, that's good. It's always concerning because they've got such a long breeding season. You know,
Mm.
they're here until September, October, compared to our other seabirds, which are probably away. But yeah, I think it's just a wait and see in terms of what impact it's having on the population of, you know, I think it's the gannets and bonxies or great skuas are the ones that have been most heavily impacted by this, as well as terns down south. But if you are looking to photograph gannets, Trip Head is brilliant. You know, there's obviously they're a bit aggressive.
They're going to eat it.
I know. There's obviously Benton Cliffs down at Yorkshire, which is another great place to go. St Kilda, there's incredible places to go. This is just a bit easier to access, albeit I would say if you've got an aversion to heights, might not be the place for you. And if you're going on a windy day, be careful, because I've got friends who've lost lenses and lost cameras to being blown over off the rocks at Trip Head.
They don't like drones either.
No, I can't imagine that they would like drones. Did we not go? So we went out on one of the Bass Rock feeding trips with each other, with people from our own camera club. And they did not say that somebody from National Geographic was flying like a £3,000 drone and it was taken out by a gannet.
Yeah.
So yeah, do not fly your drone near a gannet colony. But these feeding trips, you can do them up and down the country where there are gannet colonies or gannet trees, and it's just carnage. Like last year we went out and I had gannet poo down my face. You get fish scales on your lens. It's incredible. I don't actually. I did like beautiful guano makeup. I just had no idea where to point the camera. You're going, I don't know, like there's birds everywhere. And yeah, I don't think I necessarily took full advantage of the situation, because you're trying to avoid poo, you're trying to avoid fish scales, you're trying also not to fall in the water. And this one kind of made me feel like, you know, if you hear about airplanes stacking before they come into land, this is kind of what this image reminds me of, is the birds. You know, you can see the one on top of the one with his wings spread out. And I don't know how they don't go through each other's wings more often, albeit, you know, gannets don't have nostrils, which is how they can dive into the water at such breakneck speeds. But literally, they can break their necks diving into the water at the speeds that they do. So they're just incredible birds. I just felt like it was raining gannets. I swapped out my 400mm lens because it was just too much, down to a 24mm lens to try and get some shots of the Bash Rock in the background with the gannets there. And yeah, just some shots of them preening. And yeah, so gannets over, we're on to puffins. I think everybody's favourite seabird. I first saw a puffin when I went to Lunga with a school trip back in 1997 when I was in first year at high school, and then returned again in 2018 when we had that beautiful summer that lasted more than like 3 days. I think we again changed the name of Scotland to Hotland because it was just gorgeous. And one of my favourite times of year to visit Lunga is actually kind of late May, early June, because the island is just awash with bluebells. And actually we went for the first time, Kate came for the first time this year, and I was actually banned from saying the word bluebells because I said it that much about how exciting it was. But yeah, for me, the Treasure Isles are one of my favourite places to photograph puffins, the landscape and everything, how close you get to the birds. You know, they actively seek us out as human company. And you could see how, as the boats come into land and the people are arriving on the island, on the fairway, as you might call it, the puffins come in because we kind of put off the bigger predators to an extent. Your great skuas, ravens, peregrines, things like that. But yeah, I went with Kate for the first time this year, and don't know what you thought of it. Me banging on about it for so long.
There was lots of bluebells.
There was a lot of bluebells.
It was good fun though. I
Yeah.
like to have them because they can get a bit flighty on Isle of May. So actually to have them running about, they're super cute, and it really is a magic place to go. You take your life in your hands, try to get off the boat and navigate the rocks and stuff. But yeah, no, that's magic.
Yeah. But yeah, on the kind of fairway, you can get some nice backdrops and things. But yeah, if you've never been out to the Cheshire Isles, then I would definitely recommend it for next year. Down at the Farne Islands, just off Northumberland, it's much busier, I would say, with people than Lunga. Lunga is refreshingly quiet, and you can kind of go off track and pretty much just wander where you want as long as you're protecting the puffins' burrows. So there's a lot more people on the Farne Islands, but it's really great for puffins in flight. Or, I mean, you can see how many sand eels that this puffin is crammed into its mouth, and they actually have kind of barbs as such on their beaks that hold all those puffins in. I'm sure the record for how many sand eels a puffin has got in his mouth is in the 60s, 70s, 80s, something like that. It's an incredible. Yeah, it's an incredible amount of food that they can fit in there, and their beaks are also UV, so they glow in the dark when they go under the burrows. The not so nice side of puffins, some slightly fighty, aggressive ones on the farms as well. It's just nice to get something a bit different. Visited Isle of May, I'm sure, again, a place many people have been, a wonderful little island off of Anstruther. I was actually supposed to stay there for a week this year, but because of avian flu, they shut the island from July. But it's really great for wide angle shots. Looking at this, what was it? What did you shoot this at again?
Oh my God, that's like 2.8 or something on the 200mm.
Yeah, so really being able to isolate the puffins and get the background as well. We went out with, a couple of years ago, went out with Mum, and Kate's mother-in-law loves puffins. Like, yeah, the puffin ornaments everywhere. I don't think she's on, is she? No. So yeah, there's puffin ornaments. No, I'm not. But like, there's puffin ornaments everywhere in Badman's house, and they loved it. You know, even just on the boat trip out, you've got all the different seabirds and things like that. So it's a real, it's a real great place to go. If it's windy, depending on which way your wind direction is, you just get a lot of puffin bums. Although it is quite entertaining to kind of watch them reverse park. Is that, yeah, they kind of reverse park. When I was up at Dunnet Head earlier this year, the wind was in a different direction, and yeah, they kind of fly in backwards and look where they're going to land. It's really funny. You could spend hours watching puffins, and sometimes, depending on what time of year you go out, you might find a little puffling that needs a little bit of help. There's sometimes pictures come out from the Isle of May of puffins in the pufflings in the toilets, pufflings in the houses, because they're supposed to fledge at night, because it's safer. The gulls and things like that aren't there. But occasionally they will kind of appear into the world in the daytime, and so the crew of the Anstruther Princess will take them out and basically just wake them into the sea, where they will stay for the next 3 to 4 years before they come back to the Isle of May for their own breeding season. So I think, well, I mean, they've got a really cute name. I don't know. I know that like hedgehogs or baby hedgehogs are called hoglets, but I think pufflings is the cutest. Just so cute. Pufflings is the cutest name, yeah. And then you've got to think they've got to face such a rough few start years to their life. But I think the oldest puffin that was found in Scotland was 38 years old. So based on the ring that was put on by the BTO.
Just like me.
Oh, no, you're 40 this year. Okay, sorry. So red kites, some of you may know I volunteer up at Harte in Doon near Stirling, which is a wonderful place to visit if you're in the area. There's red kites, there's red squirrels. You know, I love photographing these birds. I think they're probably our most beautiful bird of prey, our most beautiful raptor, so that I don't need to like insult my owls. I actually passed Harte on the way back from Glencoe in 2016. I was like, oh, let's go in and see this. And then a couple of years later, I just bit the bullet, cornered Tom at an RSPB event and said, do you need any more volunteers? And the rest is history. And I've been volunteering doing talks on a Monday to members of the public about the birds, about conservation, and just wildlife in general. And yes, that's been since 2018. If you visited before or you've tried to photograph red kites before, they're very difficult to photograph. They're really fast, they're really agile. When I first started visiting, I put my camera in sports mode and pointed it at the food and hoped for the best, which is a really good way to start to learn how to photograph birds of prey, how to photograph kites. And it's probably where I've seen the most improvement in my photography when I look at the images that I've got from 2016, 2017 to the type of images that I'm taking of kites now. Just being able to practice that much, which is for photography is really key, is practicing, learning your own style, understanding the settings for the day, and just getting out there and uploading your 500 pictures and then deleting it. It's the joys of digital photography now. You know, you don't need to worry about using up your film roll. They can be aggressive to each other, and we're actually starting to see a return of this aggressive behaviour. We think it's something that they used to do before, but that they're somehow it's coming back into the natural behaviour. So that bird on the left is an adult, and the one on the right underneath it is a juvenile. So it's likely the juvenile's got some food and the adult's going, wait a minute, I want that, give me it, and is going to knock it out of the kite's feet. So there's nothing that really predates on red kites other than us, and actually probably goshawks. Goshawks, I have photographed them, I've not got it in this talk. Incredible birds, but they can take out a red kite. And like autumn is probably one of my favourite times to see them. We actually went for Kate's birthday a few years ago, and the light in autumn is just absolutely incredible. The way if you get a kind of darker sky and the sunlight catches the back of the bird, it really just shows off that beautiful red, chestnutty brown plumage that they've got. The adults have also finished molting by the time autumn rolls around and your juveniles are out. They look pristine, they look absolutely amazing. And the next couple of pictures, I'll point out how you can tell a juvenile from an adult. It is worth visiting if it's snowing, if you can make it up that path to the visitor centre. Nobody actually came into the hive this day, so I had it all to play with myself. And the snow came in, and they don't fly in heavy rain, they will fly in rain, but for some reason the snow didn't seem to bother them that much. I think my lens certainly struggled, and the Sigma 150 to 600 I find sometimes is a little bit slow to focus on things, especially fast birds like kites, and it seemed to want to focus on the snowflakes more than the bird itself. But yeah, get out there, and even the tricky weather conditions, if you can go and sit in a hide, then you know you don't need to get wet, but you can get some really good images. And actually these were taken in November 2020. I'd seen a picture of kites flying through rainbows before and was always hoping that the stars would align and I would be given that condition. So this is a juvenile bird. That tail you can see at the back is much more squared off. It's not got that defined fork that the adults have, and it's maybe easier to tell in this image, but the eyes are grey compared to the yellow of the adults as well. So there, if you're kind of looking at them and you see that, they'll probably look like that for the first couple of years of their lives. But yeah, the rainbow in the background, it was one of those days. I don't normally take my camera out when I'm on duty, but I just ran back to my car and took some pictures because you can't resist it when that happens. I can see there's a couple of questions
I was
coming
just
up.
going to say we're not doing very well at doing
No,
the
yeah, no, I know. We'll come back to your questions at the end, sorry. Ospreys are, yeah, I mean, these are taken at a hide, just to kind of put that out there. They're taken at Avonmore Ospreys, run by Gordon, the charismatic Gordon, who we'll all hear if we've been to these places say still plenty of time yet through the walkie-talkie as you're sitting in the hide. But yeah, this was a beautiful August morning just after lockdown. We went away with the family. I've always been happy with the images that we've got from here, but yeah, you're always striving for more. It's an early start. It's an early start, so you need to be in the hide or meeting Gordon at the back of the McDonald Avenue Hotel. It always feels a bit dodgy rocking up to meet like a group of people at 3:30 in the morning while everybody's sleeping. So yeah, 3:30 in the morning, it's an early start. We had our first visit that year. I think we had 14 dives from different Ospreys. We had AU6, which is the ring number that's on the Osprey, and he had 3 unsuccessful dives before he actually caught anything. So, but the more he tried, the more shots we got. But what they'll do is they'll kind of plunge into the water at pace, and you just basically put your camera, shut her down, and hope for the best, that something's going to work out. And that year, I'd been lent the Canon 300mm prime f2.8 Canon lens, and Kate had been lent one as well. So I do feel that the Ospreys are probably the place where the better quality glass really does make a difference, like being able to have that much light coming in through your lens, because of the conditions that you can be in. You need as much light as you can get. So Ospreys have a dominant foot, so you'll see them carry it in one foot, and it is because they have a dominant one. They also have, and I'm hoping I'm going to get this pronunciation right, zygodactyl talons, so they can rotate their talons and they make like an, I don't know, I don't have 5 talons, I can't make it, to make an X shape, and then they've also got barbed pads on their feet, and they use these to maneuver the fish. So they might catch it and the fish is pointing that way, but they'll turn it around so that the fish is more aerodynamic, to allow them to fly more easily with it in their claws. So this is just a series of the same type of dive that we've seen. After surfacing, the birds will kind of shake themselves dry. And one of these mornings I was there, you know, they'll circle the pond as well once they, you know, they're just trying to get lift and trying to get momentum to get back up in the air, which just makes it easier to try and get some shots. There's a bird up there at the moment that is probably the thorn in the side of Gordon. I think we can all, yeah, he finds them very frustrating. So this is I think it's a female bird that had come in. She's actually got an old satellite tag on her back that you can see at the bottom of her neck. So AU6 is the dominant male in the area, and once he's fished, all the birds will either come in early to avoid him, or they will be fought at or flown at, shouted at, anything basically to get him out, to get them out of the area by this dominant bird. And so this female came in, she successfully fished and was trying to get away. You can see here what she's trying to get out of the water, and but as she was gaining momentum, AU6, the male bird, came in kind of after her. He started chasing her. She couldn't get any height, and like she really struggled to get over a 4-foot fence. You know, these are big birds. 4 foot isn't a lot to them, and basically just chased her. She nearly flew into the containers that are sitting in the McDonald Avonmore car park. It was literally life or death. He was out to kill her if he could. She dropped her fish to get away. It was too fast for any pictures, but it was incredible behaviour to witness, to see her kind of just fly away for her life. And she came back in again later, but as soon as she was hovering above the pond, AU6 was in and she was off, because he just wasn't going to let her, let her through. And then the juveniles come in as well, which is always entertaining. It's like they've got the rail plates on. You watch them and they circle the pond loads, trying to find the right angle, the right wind direction, the right height. So you get your money's worth if you can get them coming in and diving.
It makes for some hilarious commentary from Gordon.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, Gordon is the guy who runs the Osprey thing, and he sits in the car park and radios to you in the hive and he's telling you what's going on. So he's like, this bird doesn't know what it's doing. I mean, Gordon will love it. Funnier than I would, but you're kind of listening to this commentary. You can't see anything. You can see a shadow of the bird above you, but you're just sitting there like, I don't know what's going on above me. It's very funny. But yeah, and then eventually Dad came into the area and was like, you're bringing shame on this family not being able to fish like a proper osprey. I'm going to show you how it's done. Let's go. And came in and shooed his offspring off away and stop embarrassing the family. But yeah, they're incredible birds. Some more of the images. This was actually perfect conditions. It's unusual to get such beautiful light in the morning that your ISO was at 100 for these birds. Normally you're up about 6,400, up like that, because the light isn't good. But yeah, this is the only time I've been in where my ISO level has been so low. It's great. So in that same trip to the Murray Coast, Kate and I were at the Dolphin Centre at Spey Bay that do the best cheese scones. So if you're up in the area, definitely. Yeah, we brought some home for her husband and then just forgot to tell them and just ate them ourselves. And we were just kind of looking about and just spotted this osprey fishing over the mouth of the River Spey, just as you at the sea. I was like, oh my God, Kate, there's an osprey. It was hovering, it had a few false dives. And actually, if you're in that area, the mouth of that river is a really great place to go and watch ospreys. We stayed there last year for a week. Ospreys every morning. There's a male bird, white AA is his tag name, and he's there pretty much guaranteed every day when they're back over for the summer. So yeah, it's successfully fished, and whilst it's great to see them in the heights, you can't really replace seeing birds like this in the wild. They're just incredible, a real example of not even necessarily conservation success, because these birds were persecuted through egg collection, and people would go after their eggs and they stopped coming back, but they found their way back to the country. It wasn't that they were reintroduced, they started coming back. And a lot of people think that they don't, when juveniles will leave and will come back generally to the same area, but there's a bird that's nested up in the Murray area that was rung in Dumfries and Galloway, so they're not just coming back to where they were born, they're spreading throughout the country for their own choice as well.
It's so hard what happened at LAKEY as well.
They've had a real testing time with ospreys. This is the first time in about 4 or 5 years that they've had successful chicks at LAKEY, but one died this year. I don't think they released what happened yet.
No,
I think they're doing an autopsy.
They've just cleared the nest off. It's heartbreaking.
But these birds will be starting to head back towards Africa, Portugal, Spain for the winter. It's a real test of migration. But I always find migrating birds fascinating, that they just know, it's time to leave for winter, or it's time to come back for summer. And whenever they see them pictures of landing on nests, and especially if you follow the Loch of the Lows webcam, I'll think they land and they go, what was that? What's happened? How did I get here? I've got some cleaning up to do with this nest. So moving away from ospreys, I think onto deer. A few of our native populations, albeit you could argue that fallow deer aren't necessarily native, but they've been here for a long time. There's two herds of there's 2 herds of fallow deer on Mull, one at Knock, which is on your way to Loch McKeown from Salin, and then a herd down at Loch Buie as well. So we were staying in a cottage down near the Doran Croft, which is a really nice little place to stay. And we had these fallow deer behind the cottage. Much more timid than your red deer. They didn't really come in close. They always remind me of like I don't know, fairy tale deer, you know, that you would read with the, you know, they've got the big massive antlers, they just look like they're straight out of a storybook. We also had visiting red deer, according to the guest book, this was Sasha, and she's still there from somebody that I follow on Instagram. She had another baby earlier this year, but as soon as the cottage lights went on, she was in looking for something to eat. I don't know what she wanted, but she wanted something to eat. And actually we were doing some astrophotography. It was February, so we went out the front of the cottage. We had torches, the stars were out, it was beautiful. All we could see was these little deer eyes all around the cottage. It's actually terrifying. We had to give up.
Freaked us out.
Yeah,
Totally
like let's just get back in the cottage because we don't know what they're going to do. So many people have been to Glenettive a bit. Well, I would say it was a bit of a deer hotspot. The last couple of times I've been, I found a great little Airbnb because well, neither of us do camping, to be honest. But yeah, I found a little Airbnb halfway down the glen. And I would say that I don't think the deer are probably as engaging with people as they once were. You know, you could pretty much guarantee where you would see them on the road as you're driving down, but there's big signs up everywhere now saying don't feed them. There's lots more deer fencing going on, and so I'm just not sure if the same problem exists as it was where people were feeding them carrots. You know, I saw one up at the Glenorchy viewpoint as you head up towards Rannochmoor, and they were feeding them sausage rolls, and yeah, it just wasn't a great situation. But you know, you do still see them probably easier than going up into the hills or something. So trying to get one without a telephone wire in there or a car or another person or something can always be quite tricky. And this one, just I guess interesting from a camera, if you're a camera club member, this scored 20 in our camera club competition. We had Livingston Camera Club. 20 is the maximum points it can get. It went to an inter-club camera club competition with another one and got 15. So for anybody out there who's in a camera club, judging is so objective. You know, 20 by one judge, 15 by another for the same image. So yeah, I guess don't take it to heart if you don't get the score you were expecting, because another judge might give you something a bit different. So going out looking for foxes in local fields. This one was a couple of years ago now. Saw this beautiful animal. I love foxes. There's just something about their stare. I was tracking one in lockdown, located the den. They lost one cub. I was tracking it with a friend with trail cams and stuff. They did lose one cub and then they seemed to move on, which is quite standard for foxes. If the den gets too smelly, you know, there's lots of animal carcasses and things like that in there, they do tend to move on. But then my mum's friend who lived in Edinburgh, at Corstorphine, which is a really actually popular place for foxes because it's all built on old woodland, was texting mum during lockdown with the tales of her little visitors that were coming into her garden. So as soon as those travel restrictions were through, likewise with the long-eared owls, I was like, Kate, do you want to come and see some foxes? And within minutes I had appearance from this one cub, and it was one of those hold your breath, don't disturb them, just let them do what they need to do. And then headed back a second time maybe a few weeks later, and the size difference between that image that I just showed and then this one, and then they brought their sibling along, so it was great to watch the two cubs. I had tried putting a little bit of meat out for them, but I was snatched by the gulls pretty much instantly, so used some dog food because Irene had a dog, so just shook a little container of dog biscuits, and that would kind of bring them in. And then I used her garden pond as a bit of a drinking pool. You know, it's a normally graceful, beautiful fox, but this one's dribbling. What it has just drunk, and actually the Scottish Wildlife Trust used this as one of their kind of feature images in the Members magazine last year. And then just trying to be a bit more creative, taking advantage of some well-placed flowers. So I was shooting down towards the fox, which isn't ideal. Obviously you kind of want to shoot at eye level if you can, but there was some little yellow flowers, so I just used that to frame this cub. Brown hares are quite skittish depending on what time of day you're approaching them, but really bizarrely I was at two different locations. I was just standing at a fence watching them and they ran in really close to me, and I've got to the point with this one that it became too close for the lens to actually focus, and I've got images and I can't bring myself to delete them. They're quite funny, of the hair entering in one half of the image and then just its backside in the next part of the image. So if I was in any way skilled in Photoshop, then I could like merge them and stitch them together. But yeah, I've got 2 photos of half of the hair. And then there was kind of 5 hairs. It's maybe not, you know, the best photo. It was taken at quite a distance. But they're doing a little bit of boxing. The distance that these animals can cover in such a short space of time is just incredible, doing laps and laps of the field. And then spotted, like this one, spotted it sitting in the grass, just the kind of golden brown colour of the hair against the green grass. And then this one kind of ran down a path towards me and stopped, looked at me, and then ran up. They kind of like to follow little tracks in the fields if you are out looking for them, and just stopped there nicely posing for me. And then this one, I kind of put a bit of a different edit on this one, I guess, made it a little bit more hazy, not quite as sharp and textured, just in that field full of buttercups. Quite like the way the hair's posing there. Moving on to probably one of our favourite animals, the otter. We mainly travel to Mull to see otters, as it feels like most of the population do at the moment, is going out to Mull. We were told winter was the best time to go and see them, so of course we promptly booked a trip, which is the one I mentioned about staying at the Doran Croft, which is actually Gaelic for otter. So we headed out in February, which was at the same time as Storm Eric, so we headed out a little bit early. And I actually went again this February at the same time as I think Storm Derek. I might be wrong on the storms, but yeah, maybe February is not the best time because it does seem to be windy, and it was definitely an experience kind of sleeping in an attic room with 60-mile-an-hour winds buffering against it. Was a bit terrifying. But anyway, we kind of headed out to Loch McKeel, where we heard kind of 2 little furry bodies scurrying like across the rocks. And so we're lying in really wet, squidgy ground, which wasn't ideal, but we had a really good vantage point that didn't disturb the otters. It was a mum and cub, and you can see that she's kind of been in the wars a bit, you know, round the eye there, but that cub was just trying to feed, and they were just playing. It was really nice. When you track otters, it's really rewarding if it's like they know you're there, but they allow you to stay. You know, you're respecting them, you're using good field craft, and it can really bring you some magic encounters with these animals. So,
and it doesn't matter if you're dressed looking like M&Ms.
No, so Kate and I don't really wear camouflage. We might wear pale, you know, muted down colours, but when we were on Mull last year with our mum and brother, I was wearing a pink jacket and Kate was wearing a yellow jacket, and we bumped into a photographer, Pete Walkden, who now lives out there, and he said we look like 2 M&Ms running along the beach. But do you know what, I photographed an otter last year. We saw one, and I was wearing blue leggings with puffins all over them and a white jumper. So, you know, I hid behind a rock. They didn't need to know what I was wearing. So yeah, these were this mother and cub were kind of rolling about, and then as we headed back, you can see here the light is definitely fading, but and how well the otters actually blend in. So we spotted this one in the seaweed and went home with huge grins on our faces. We did see 2 in another loch, but we just couldn't get into the right position. There wasn't a lot of cover. A lot of people sometimes think that otters are maybe more nocturnal, which is probably the case in the cities. On our more urban areas, but otters on the coast tend to be more tidal, because if the tide's too high, there's nowhere for them to hide. You know, there's no rocks for them to hide behind. So anything kind of lower tide or on an incoming or outgoing tide is going to be better for finding them. But we also, this seaweed, I stepped in a bunch of seaweed. Oh my God, it was disgusting. It smelled the smelliest seaweed I've ever come across in my life, and I stepped right in it. And there was also a huge herd of cows on the beach, which is a common problem if you go out to Mull. Sheep, cows, no fences, so they might, you know, I was last year, I had my kind of leg stretched out behind me, and I felt something behind me, and this cow would come up and was sniffing my foot. I got a fright in my life. My husband was just standing laughing at me. So otters are challenging, they're rewarding, they're frustrating. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we took our husbands out once, and they got bored and started their loch spell be open, and there has only been one, and I don't actually know who won it. I think golf won that day. So we then had, this was May 2019, I think. It was one of those days, it was miserable weather, horrible, but it was at our sitting house. So went out, and my husband actually, Chief Otters Botter, spotted these two kind of rolling around in the sea. I did think they were probably mating, but I think they were pre-mating. Sorry, I'm going to stop talking about otters. They were just rolling around in the water together, enjoying each other's company. This is the dog otter. They eventually broke cover and came out on shore. So this is, I mean, you can see he's a big otter, and they came out on shore to kind of groom. And this is the female, probably a little bit further up the shore. She was having a good roll around in the seaweed. And like Kate said about her image in the Edinburgh Science Festival, this image was featured in the Edinburgh Science Festival earlier this year as well. So she was, for a time, probably the most famous otter on Mull. I don't think she's with us anymore, unfortunately. She was quite old. She was kind of known as Pink Nose quite affectionately. And she also spotted her feeding, I think maybe on a, not a skate, but like a plaice or a really flat fish. And it was, Andy Howard had said she took ages to eat it because her teeth are worn down, which is a sign that they are older, if their teeth aren't quite as strong and as sharp as they
actually
used
looks
to
a
be.
bit like she's gummy there.
Yeah,
Where bottom lip.
yeah, but no, I think any female otter or any otter in that area could well be a descendant of our lovely little Pink Nose. And I kind of used Twitter for a lot of sightings to find anything, and I found out that there was otters on the water of Leith. And so I went through, again, took my husband with me, and got told, sorry, I'm trying to move, oh, there we go. I got told there was a mother and cub in the Union Canal, just above the Sleaford, like the canal that runs above Sleaford. So walked to Wester Hales and then back, and heard the exact point of where we joined the water of Leith. This squeaking, really high pitched squeaking coming from the reeds where we'd started. And it was the cub. I don't know if I haven't put pictures in of them. But yeah, the star attraction, and we weren't bothered. This mum was just feeding in the middle of the canal. It was not wide at all. There's cyclists going by. You know, she was attracting a real crowd, but wasn't bothered at all. And yeah, Edinburgh's turning into a really good place to see otters. There's some at Stockton Park, and they do tend to come in the evening. You saw them earlier this year. But yeah, I think with our waterways becoming cleaner, otters are really starting to spread into areas that we haven't seen them before. Oh, hold on. Yeah, so moving on to, there we go. So the next few shots are taken at Neil McIntyre's hide. The next few shots are just going to be of red squirrels, which I'm sure everybody will enjoy seeing. We've kind of visited it individually, we've visited it together. Oh God, sorry. I just got a massive fright. Kate's husband just walked in. The room was really dark and I just got a fright, sorry. So yeah, just this is one of these shots again, just the chance shots. Went out the hide to put some food out, and there was a kind of light was behind the squirrel, so used that to get a bit of a silhouette showing off those really cute ear tufts and fluffy tail. We also visited in August, kind of late August into September is when the heather is at its peak. When I was just come back from the Murray Coast last weekend, it's already starting to pop, which feels a little bit early compared to the last couple of years. But yeah, Neil's Hide is in such a beautiful, peaceful location, surrounded by that Caledonian pine forest with a heather, and yeah, it's an easy way to spend a good few hours. I mean, trying to find unique shots of red squirrels can be kind of challenging. There's so many people out there taking such incredible photos. So yeah, just if you're out photographing them, just keep taking pictures, because you never know what you're actually going to end up with. So, you know, watching for grooming activity is really important, because again, you can get this type of image. Neil has made us aware of a female that he'd seen that looked like she was gathering nesting material, and thankfully she came scampering through the trees, and you can see here she's got a big ball of grass, and it looks like she is a nursing mum going by the teats on her stomach. So it was really nice to see her taking that nesting material back to the dray. There's a lot of research actually coming out that pine martens and squirrels are kind of, because they've evolved together, that red squirrels and pine martens, red squirrels have started to sense when they're around and may not necessarily return to the same area to know that a pine marten has been there. And pine martens are, if there's an area where there's grey squirrels, red squirrels, pine martens tend to go after grey squirrels more because they're heavier and they can't escape them as quickly. So yeah, quite interesting to see those studies coming out. And depending on the time of year, you can get some real, you can get great backlighting opportunities. It really shows off the texture of the squirrels, as you can see the hair along the back and ear tufts, and works against their colours. They really have quite a varied colouring to them compared to your grey squirrels, which tend to just be grey. Red squirrels can be really distinct in their colours. Black ones, Argotay, have got some really dark coloured squirrels, and then 2 minutes later you've got a bright orange one coming in as well. And there's a old wives' tale that the blonder the tip of the tail, the more they're actually related to the traditional Scottish population of squirrels, not ones that have been brought over from Scandinavia. I don't know how true that is, but
I think it's true.
Yeah. Probably one of the lesser known hides is Philip Price's out on the west coast near Ardfern. Is a hillside located hide. You can see there in the background you've got Loch Craignish. It's just nice to get something different. The woodlands and all that are brilliant, but to get that kind of backdrop of the loch is really nice. Visited by around kind of 4 squirrels throughout the day. I was joined in the hide by this one. It kind of kept creeping up the side, and Philip's Price, it's not a luxurious hide by any stretch of the imagination, and squirrels definitely take advantage of that. But there's lots of little birds around too: goldfinches, coal tits, nuthatches, woodpeckers. And you don't just get views of the loch in the background, but also the surrounding hillside, and it's just really nice to get backdrops that are different from the usual woodland. We've not actually been to this hide together. I've just been the once. It's not the easiest place to get to, but I think it's definitely one we need to go back.
I think the heights are quite small as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite small. But it's a great wee place to go to. And Philip's wonderful. He's a really great kind of understated, quiet photographer. And then the next one is probably moving on to Mark Hamblin's hide, again in the Highlands, Avonmore, Cairngorms area. It's not a big hide, but the really good thing with Mark's place is it's at eye level. So when we went earlier this year, you've got the squirrels kind of running up. You're not using too many perches and things like that. Especially at this time of year when the heather's kind of coming out, you really get them in that colour, and it just works really, really well. And this was at James Roddy's hide, which I'm not sure is there anymore, but it was we were kind of waiting for pine marten at that one. We were a little unlucky. If anyone has tried to photograph red squirrels in the hot weather that we've had recently, they don't tend to appear. So, but there's also wasps.
That was a long day.
Man, 6 or 7 hours in a sauna, I felt like. But yeah, a lot of wasps, and I do not like wasps, and I do not react well to wasps, unfortunately.
And you're wearing something next to the door.
Yeah, no. All fun. Wildlife is fun. Penny Hedge is probably fast becoming a really popular hide. It's just outside the Bridge of Cally in Blairgowrie, and we've been a few times together actually, and this was really fun. And the squirrels don't seem to be doing this of late, but they would come and take nuts out of our hands, as you can see here. So of course we needed to get pictures. And the good thing with Penny Hedge is they also make cake. So last time I went, I got chocolate chip shortbread and sometimes like drizzle cake. There's toilets too, because that's the problem with these hides. There's never toilets. And I think if squirrels could fit in your pocket, this guy, I would have a pet squirrel right now. If this one if I'd managed to squeeze it into that pocket on the side. And yeah, so we got so caught up actually in having this type of encounter. I've got so many videos of this squirrel there. It was just really fun to kind of spend time, put down the camera and just watch the squirrels and watch them have fun, watch them come up onto our knees and see what they could do. But as the light was dropping, it was, you know, it's then time to kind of play around and use the light behind you. As you can see, it's lighting up the squirrel's ears. I quite like the effect of that, and what it does, it shows you little veins or little spots in their ears. The hide's actually situated in Mark and Sue's back garden. I always say to my husband, but you know, if we ever look at moving house and there's a red squirrel in the listing of that property, that is the one that we're buying. Like, I don't care what the rest of it looks like. If there's already red squirrels visiting, that is our future home, because that's what Mark and Sue's house listing had when they bought it. So yeah, they get pine martins, buzzards, sparrowhawks, jays, they get all sorts coming in and visiting. So it's a really great place to go. There's no feeders, you know, nothing hanging for the birds to get in your shot if you're doing the pictures. They kind of put little tuna cans in the back of branches so the birds will hover around there. And there's lots of rich colours in the background. The birch trees, depending on the time of year, this was July, height of summer, so they're really bright green. You then go in October and the leaves have started to turn, and you get a much more yellow background. A little wall that the squirrel like to play around. There's some rats coming out of there. They've had stoats and weasels using this. So yeah, it's one of those places that it's really fun to just sit and watch what's going on around you. Yeah, they're just, yeah, I could just photograph them all day.
Yeah, they're so cute.
This one was, there's paste in the side of that birch tree, and it stood for about 10 minutes just eating it. A greedy little squirrel, that's for sure. Yeah.
So many squirrel photos.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
another thing.
Another squirrel. So that's, I mean, you can see here you've got the yellow in the background, so the leaves are starting to turn, and Kate was trying these jumping shots. I was not as patient as Kate, so yeah, these are watching them go. They're so fast to try and do these shots, but yeah, I just left Kate to it for this one. Just a couple running around, and watching them when there's other squirrels running around is really entertaining. They kind of do this tail swishing noise, this muttering noise at each other. And actually Kate sent me a video a couple of weeks ago, this squirrel making, I don't know, it's like a really breathy noise, as a way to scare off a squirrel.
Oh, I dare you to try and
God, no, I'd rather try and impersonate a puffin. But yeah, making this really breathy noise. Naturally, I was in a hide at the weekend, and there was a sparrowhawk had landed up in the trees, and this squirrel, I've never seen a squirrel sit so still as when this sparrowhawk was lurking, and it started making this noise, and it was a really breathy noise, is maybe the right way to describe it. But yeah, just quite interesting to watch their behaviour around other squirrels and other wildlife. Red squirrels are much more fussy about their food. They will test the nuts to make sure that they're fresh. That's why grey squirrels are double the size, and why they're more, or why they're easier prey for pine martins, because they just eat anything. So yeah, they'll test it and chuck it away if it's not fresh. So yeah, just more squirrels really. I guess kind of just moving on to some insect stuff. Dragonfly, this was in the garden. I'm actually not great with insects. I tend to run away from them in the opposite direction. But this common darter landed in the garden, and actually the backdrop to this looks like it might be quite exciting, but it was just a dressing unit in my neighbour's garden. So you know, you make use of what you can get. A large red damselfly, again, that was a rather muddy pond, or a muddy puddle, sorry. So you just kind of look around to see what you can use in your image, but they're a great subject that you can get relatively close to. They'll generally return to the perch that they were on already. Ringlet butterfly, which it actually looks like it's asleep. I think it looks like it's just having a wee butterfly nap, but they don't really rest. Actually, I think they tend to be more active when it's cloudy. 5 spotted burnet moth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 5. Just double check that. But their little antenna, I think, remind me of Loki's helmet from the Avengers films. They're quite commonly found in grassland throughout the summer. You'll see them flying about. They're really clumsy. They just kind of get in your way. And then common grasshoppers, I heard loads this year. I don't know if anybody else thought the same, but they're really loud. Yeah, loads of them around this year. They're kind of easy to hear, not so easy to spot. Apparently they've only got 3 hops in them, and then before they need to stop. And I need to clarify, because I've said that before, and people think I mean there's three hops in them and then they die. No, there's 3 hops and then they have to stop and have a little grasshopper rest and then they can jump again. It's not that they're dead. And then this common carder just in the garden, common carder bee, thank God for long lenses, if you ask me, when it comes to bee photography. And actually, when we grew up in Edinburgh, and we had a really big garden and a path going up the grass, but our dad used to grow strawberries and raspberries and had a really big raspberry bush, but it was covered in bees. And I used to cycle up and down the path, but whenever it was raspberry season, I would stop, get off my bike, make Kate cycle past the raspberry bush, and then I'd pick up my bike and continue cycling down the path because I was terrified of bees.
That type of thing still happens.
Yeah. No, I carried a bee for a mile. I found a bee in Glenethan this year and I was looking for a flower and there was no flowers around. It was April and I put my husband's gloves on and I just carried this bee for a mile down the road trying to find a flower for it to eat. So I've gone, I mean, I still didn't want to touch it, but
You're so brave.
I know, I am brave. Anyway, sorry. So in terms of, I mean, that's probably my wildlife imagery is kind of finished. So I guess in summary for me and stories that we have, discovering photography, to be honest, has quite honestly changed my life. It's changed my life, it's changed me as a person. The journey I've been on since losing dad in 2015 has had lots of ups and downs, challenges, successes. But it's one that I'm really glad I'm on. I'm glad I'm the person I am now compared to the person that I was, you know, before I lost dad. I've made some really great friends, you know, through Camera Club. As I said, I went to Sweden. Poor you guys having to take me to Sweden when I quite literally have panic attacks in flights. But anyway, yeah, made some really good friends. And I get to share this with Kate, which is really, you know, it's a really special relationship that we've got. It's obviously not something you would want to happen to have to kind of bring that relationship, you know, it's come out of such an awful time for us. But it's I guess it's a silver lining to a very dark cloud for us. And I mean, there's still loads I want to learn, that I want to achieve. I'm always kind of working on my own style. And I think that's one of the best tips I can probably give anybody, any hobby that you've got. Take inspiration from other people. I look at pictures by a guy called Kev Morgans, who spends a lot of time up in Shetland and the Fair Isle, because I really want puffins at sunset, and his images are just spectacular. And that's what I was hoping to try and get on the Isle of May, but avian flu kind of had other ideas. Photography is also taking me places I never expected it to volunteer at Argety. I've written blogs for the RSPB. I'm actually now planning workshops at Argety for red squirrel and red kite photography, which is huge, I think, for us to take that step. This is the first one. I don't know what else we'll consider doing from there.
Plans are positive.
Yeah, plans are afoot. The first time I photographed short-eared owls, I dragged Anton with me because I was too scared to go along myself. But now I go away for the weekend by myself. I go here, there, everywhere. I finished climbing a Monroe by myself early. Yeah, Kate was not happy that I finished climbing that Monroe, but
Only because you were by yourself.
But anyway, yeah. So I love talking to people about wildlife. It's given me an outlet that I never thought I would have before. It's hugely increased my confidence. The difference is made for me personally, for at work as well. It's given me the courage to introduce myself to people that I never would have done. So I've asked Tom if I can volunteer at Argety. You know, networking and banking isn't as exciting. So I'm really glad my boss isn't on this, but networking and banking isn't overly exciting compared to networking in this type of environment. It's much more intimidating and not quite as exciting as speaking to your favourite photographer. And I guess, yeah, finding out that they know who you are. And actually went to one of Gordon Buchanan's talks a couple of years ago, and like I had our business card in my hand, and sweaty pan moment, and I just like shoved it in his hand. And he now follows us on Instagram and occasionally likes our pictures sometimes.
And he knew we were there the last time we
Yeah, he recognised us from when we went to see him again earlier this year. I fully expected that card to go through the wash in his jeans, but you know, to have him follow us and as one of my inspirations in this industry. Yeah, I think to tie it back to the theme of stories, yeah, it's an interesting one and one I'm looking forward to see where it takes us and takes me and takes Kate next. But yeah, to finish, I don't know how much we've overran, Anne, I'm really sorry, but yeah, I'll hand over to Kate to finish.
Yeah, I think I hope everybody's enjoyed our story. You know, like it's not the end of our story. We've got so much more that we want to do. Obviously, it has brought us closer together. I don't know any sisters that are as close as we are, and it literally is everything that we talk about and everything that we do. And you know, I mirror what Claire said, that it has changed my life completely in terms of being out in nature. It's so important to me now personally. I changed my career for it. You know, I now work for a nature charity and I get to listen and talk about protecting nature and protecting wildlife and what we can all collectively do day in, day out. And that's a very brand new journey. I've only been in the job 2 months, and I can't wait for where that's going to take me. And it's super exciting that I can now have my personal passion in life as my career. So I think for us, it's, you know, our talk was past, present and future. For the future, the world is our oyster and we can't wait to continue to explore together, and see what happens in the future. So thank you very much for listening to us, and not only our story but our families, and we hope that you've enjoyed seeing our images. We didn't do very well at doing the chat and looking at the comments at the same time, so we'll open up the talk to we'll go through the questions.
Yes,
if there's anything we can.
You've got a couple of questions. There's one from Martin to you, Kate, about what focal length lens do you use mostly? I think that was it. And are you going to go over to the dark side and use a mirrorless camera?
Oh man, so I use
Clare.
I know. Well, like yeah, I would love to. I would. What I would, being brutally honest, I've had to focus on my career for a little while, so photography has taken a little bit of a backseat whilst I do that. Although I did have a conversation with Claire at the weekend that I'm now ready to start planning more trips and getting out there. So that might drive me to copy my sister and get a new camera and go mirrorless. I would really love to. Like, yours is fab and I've tried it out and things, and it feels a little bit like when we were kids, but the opposite way. I'm now getting Claire's hand-me-down camera, so I've got her Mark II now, but I'm loving that. And I use a 16-35mm lens, I think, wide angle. I've got Sigma lens, same as Claire, 600 and 70-200 Canon lens, which was actually my dad's, and I actually think I need to take a shot to get looked at because I don't think it's working properly.
It's the one that was on the table in the picture.
The one that was on the table, so that's how old it is, but I just don't think it's focusing. I'm not getting really sharp images out of it. So I think it's either going to have to get abandoned on the shelf because I can't let it go. It was my dad's, you know, and I can't ever part with it. But yeah, so, but drone is the way that I'm going at the moment, is that's what I tend to take out with me. It's tiny, I don't need, it doesn't weigh a ton. And it's just dangerous. I like flying into trees, so yeah. Thanks for the question, Martin.
Yeah, and Louise, I don't know if you're still on, Louise, but you had asked when you were going through the squirrel photos, Claire, to go back to the previous squirrel. Louise, are you still on? Do you want to unmute and ask Claire?
Yes, it was the really cute first squirrel photo. I thought it was fantastic. Can you pop that one back on?
I'll let Kate take over that technical. Wrong thing. Today.
Which one was it?
One.
I think it was the very first one. The second one, I think it was sort of perched on the branch, but the first one, it was kind of looking directly at the camera.
Wait now, I need to go back to sharing again. Where's Jim? That one?
No. I mean, they're all fantastic, but it was one specific one. I was trying to show my husband, and then it changed really quickly.
Oh, sorry.
You're going to keep going until you say stop.
Yeah.
Not that one.
No. It's there. That's the exact one. Thank you.
Okay. It's all right.
Oh, thank you. That is
I'm just taking a quick screenshot so I can show my husband later. Thank you.
Yeah. Have you taken it?
I have, thank you.
You have to make him watch the YouTube video when it goes live.
Make them watch the
Well.
whole thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, are there any more live questions before we wrap up?
Russell said, what does your future hold? What does the future hold for your photography workshops at the moment? I think is the next step, which if I'm honest, we were spurred on to do after bumping into a woman on Mull. I think Ruth Fleming runs Mull Magic, which is a tour that takes you out walking in Mull or looking for otters in Mull. It's not like a photography tour, but we met her the first time we went out looking for otters there. And she asked what I was doing out there. I was just by myself. And I said, oh, I'm just out by myself. She's like, you're not running workshops? And I was like, no. She said, why not? You may as well. And there's no women that seem, or there's very few women that seem to do workshops. It's a very male kind of dominated industry, and there's lots of wonderful photographers out there, but there's not a lot of women. And we want to kind of take that step to empower women to join photography, to feel that it's a safe place, to, you know, it can be really intimidating turning up places and it's just guys. You know, and
You don't need to wear camouflage. You can dress like an M&M.
Billy, you can dress like an M&M, it's fine. So yeah, I think workshops, not just for women, but we want to try and plug that gap that there isn't many women that do this out there, and that's kind of what we want to do. So yeah, workshops, and if anybody wants to pay me the equivalent of my salary to do it professionally, we'll 100% do it. Any other questions? Thank you for making any compliments on your on the images, by the way. And yes, Martin, roll on Sweden. I'm going to go to the doctor.
Oh,
see what
I
can get.
can't wait for you guys to go on that trip.
So Sweden is for golden eagles and foxes and stuff next year at Connie Lundstrom's place, which yeah, it's a heated hide, thankfully. Like
Just somebody pack some jelly babies to keep her
yeah,
sweet.
just keep them quiet. Yep. So Janie, yeah, golden eagles, foxes, squirrels, whatever kind of turns up. It's generally going to be from sunrise to sunset in the hides for golden eagles. But if you look up Connie's images, he has golden eagle stuff. You just don't get that opportunity in Scotland. Golden eagles are so hard to find. They're, you know, they're Schedule 1 birds, so you can't get close to the nest or anything like that. But yeah, it was actually images that Gary Jones got of foxes in the snow earlier this year that I was like, oh, I really want to go out to Sweden for foxes in the snow and the golden eagles. So yep, that is Sweden. Thanks, Kirsten. Yeah, it does definitely feel intimidating for women. Yeah, so yeah, thank you everybody for your comments. I don't think there's any other questions, but if anyone does have anything, feel free to drop us a message on Instagram. I'm at Scottish Sisters Photography, Kate's at Scottish Sisters Explorers, I think it is. Yeah. Just so we keep the kind of landscape and wildlife, you know, having its own kind of audience. So,
We're
yeah.
both very independent, and trying to manage one Instagram was not easy.
No. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I'm conscious it's quite late now. You know, I hope you've enjoyed it, and if anyone has any questions or yeah, just drop us a message on social media. Facebook can be a bit funny. I don't get a notification if I get a message on Facebook, so
Instagram's always best if you're on there.
Instagram or email
Or our website.
Yeah, so lots of ways to get in touch, but we really appreciate you taking the time on your Wednesday night to listen to us talk about our little story.
No, thank you very much. I think everyone, you'll understand why Kate and Claire were, and the ginger cats here. I think you'll understand why you two were an obvious choice for presenting in a festival with sorry, I'm struggling with the cat, with the theme of stories, because all the little stories behind all your images are so refreshing to hear. It's great fun. Your images are amazing, and to say, I think we're all being privileged to sit and join your little sisterly chat, and I like the little bit of banter between you, and thank you very much, and thank you everyone for logging in and joining in.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully,
indeed.
yeah, have a safe journey with your wine glass back to the kitchen or wherever you are. And, thanks very much again to both of you, and I think we'll unmute and do a round of applause.
Thank you.
Yay. Well done.
Thank you so much, everybody.